And then here are our presenters for some introductions.
My name is Anthony Tardif. I'm the Instruction and First Year Engagement Librarian at the Foley Library.
I'm Jason Barnago. I'm the Associate Director over the Disability Access Office in the Center for Student Academic Success.
I'm Bryce Thomas. I'm the Associate Director for the Learning Strategies area within the Center for Student Academic Success.
I'm Danielle Teague. I'm an Academic Advisor in the Office of Academic Advising.
And then we're going to go ahead and get started with Foley Library's presentation.
All right, so thank you, CJ. So my name is Anthony Tardif, and I was actually a student here at Gonzaga for my undergrad. And I actually worked in the library, which is that beautiful brick building you can see on your screen there. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I actually didn't use a lot of the stuff the library had to offer until I was a junior or senior, and I was kicking myself thinking, why didn't I use this stuff? It could have made my life so much easier. So what I'm going to do here today is just give you a quick overview of some of the things that we have to offer that could be helpful. So, next slide. All right, so the first one is just study spaces. We're a great place to study on campus. We've got 4 floors with study spaces dotted all throughout. We've got a computer lab, a classroom, power tables, open areas with whiteboards, wheeling whiteboards for collaboration. And the space you're seeing here, that's the rare book room on the 3rd floor of the library. It used to be the place where the archivist would come out if you wanted a book from the archives from the vault. They would come out and bring you white gloves first, and then they would bring you the book itself. And it was just this beautiful, hushed kind of space. We kind of figured that that was a little bit overkill, and now we've opened this space up for students to study in. This is one of our silent areas. So that brings me to my next slide, which is the noise zone. So the library is divided up into different levels of noise. So if a student is the type who likes a little bit of like background ambiance, like coffee shop style ambiance, the main level is a great place to study. You get group study going on, background conversation, reminders that there are other human beings on the planet, and the world's not going to end with the exam. If you're the type who likes quiet, the second level has a much quieter vibe. Small conversations are permitted, but not group study. And then the 3rd floor that I showed you, that's utterly silent study. That's like pin drop silence. No, we librarians, despite the librarian shushing stereotype, we don't police that, but you will get some really wicked glares from your fellow students if you're making noise up there. Next slide. So we also have study rooms. Study rooms are reservable. So go on the website, students check them out there, and then go pick up the key at the checkout desk. They get really, really popular during finals week, so I always urge students to get a jump on that. They're supposed to be for 2 or more students. We don't really police this during the school year, but during finals week we will, just because these rooms are in such high demand. Next slide. So this is our food policy. It's pretty lenient. We just ask you don't bring anything messy, smelly, or hot. Smells can be distracting to people trying to study. And obviously we want to keep messes down, but covered drinks are fine, sandwiches, chips, lunch kind of stuff, all that's fine. Anywhere in the building, no restrictions. Next. We are a major printing area on campus, so if a student doesn't have access to a printer, needs something printed, we have printing that's available 24/7. We have a printer out in the lobby that works even when the library is closed. The way it works is it's tied to Zag bucks, so to Bulldog bucks. So it takes the money out of there. It's 7 cents a page for black and white, 25 cents a page for color. And it's all linked to this login system that works off the student's ID. So you can see a little inset picture there. Student scans their ID at the printer, and that's where they actually release the job. So they tell it to print from their laptop or from one of the computers in the building. It holds onto that print, doesn't charge them until they go up to any printer in the building. Every printer connects to the same print queue and release it there, then it'll charge them. So it works pretty seamlessly. Next one. So we are a library, and we have many examples of this really amazing piece of technology called a book. These things don't run out of batteries. They're quite impressive. They hold their information for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. The library actually has a book that goes back to 1475, the Bruno Psalter. It's really amazing. But I have to admit that nowadays, most students, when they're doing their research, they're going to be mostly working with online resources. So next slide. This shows a screenshot of our website, which is how students get to most of the resources that we have available. Next slide, please. And this is just a quick screenshot of one of our databases. This is where students will actually do the bulk of their researches in databases like this, using very targeted searches for highly specific information that's always going to be reputable and often scholarly. So it's the kind of stuff that makes Google jealous. Now, if that looks a little bit overcomplicated, it's actually pretty easy to use. And the good news is that the last resource I want to show you is always available to help, and that is, next slide, librarians. So you can see there that we have the information desk that's staffed most of the time that we're open. And there's always going to be a degreed librarian on backup, even if there's a student out at the desk. And our students are incredibly helpful and well trained. The librarians can help with basically any type of research question. Now, the library is open. Our hours kind of shift during the school year, but one thing you can rely on is that if there's school the next day, the library is going to be open until 2 a.m. the previous night. So it's a great place to come in and study, get a little last minute cramming in, if that's your style. Now, it's kind of funny, but some students don't actually like to approach a librarian. I was like this myself, and then I became a librarian, so I figured. Librarians actually have this kind of weird stereotype that follows us around, like we're all these old women with the bun and pince-nez glasses going, shush. That's not actually true. We're actually very friendly, as you can see in the next slide here. These are me and my colleagues on the library instruction team. Badly photoshopped in there. I'm the one in the middle, but as you saw, you wouldn't recognize me by that on campus because I, in fact, have no hair. I'm not sure that's a good look for me, actually, the hair. So I can't even grow a bun, so I don't even fit the stereotype that way, just saying. But honestly, the librarians are incredibly helpful. We give the students many, many ways to get in touch and to get some help. Next slide. This is one of my favorites right here. This is the chat system that's available on our website. So a student just has to click here. They'll be connected to a librarian. Anytime the library is open, they're going to be connected to the degreed librarian who's on backup, who can help with research. And as a librarian, I was actually really surprised at how well this works, the system. And I think it's really comfortable for a lot of people, for a lot of students. And what's really amazing about this system is that it is 24/7. We partner with the other colleges in the Jesuit consortium in the country, the AJCU, and we all cover each other's off hours. So I cover an hour a week, fortunately, during the daytime. But people have chatted in from Fordham and Marquette and Boston College, CSAS, all over the country. And when they do, I get a box that lets me get back into their library resources, though I were a librarian there. I can't help with local questions like, can you lower the blinds, or where's your restroom, which sometimes come through. But I can help with research and vice versa. So like I said, when we're open, you're going to get a GU librarian. But when we're closed, so if it's 3 o'clock a.m., for instance, and a student is panicking because their paper is due the next day, they can still get a degreed librarian to help them right at that moment. Not that any of the students are going to do that, right? No student would ever do that. But if they did, they could get a degreed librarian to actually help them out with their research at 3 a.m. in the morning, which is kind of mind-blowing. And to me, this just really highlights the fact that the library exists to support student learning. That is why the building was built. That's why librarians have a job. So I always urge students to please talk to a librarian. There are no dumb questions because every question is job security. And students already paid for us for their tuition, so they might as well get their money's worth. So I always tell students that, you have this resource here that's effectively free for you to use. And don't butt your head against the wall doing your research for more than a few minutes. If you feel like you've hit a dead end or you don't know where to go next, just talk to a librarian. That's what we're here for. Well, that's my spiel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your lovely presentation. If anyone has any questions for Anthony, feel free to put them in the chat. And at the end of the Center for Student Academic Success's presentation, we'll move into the Q&A portion. With that, we're going to transition to our second presenter as soon as I find their PowerPoint, which has disappeared from the screen share.
We cause a lot of problems.
Some technical difficulties, folks. It's part of the job. There we go. All right.
All right, so Jason Bargo, Disability Access, Center for Student Academic Success. On the screen now you see our mission statement of the center, CSAS, empowering students to become active and independent learners in their own academic success. So we spent days going over each of the words for our mission when we first formed as a center. The center was formed from two offices that have existed on campus for decades, Academic Advising and Assistance and Disability Access, formerly known as DREAM. And then a third office that grew out of Disability Access that was called STAR, and now is known as Learning Strategies Management. And we walk with students in their pursuit of academic success, and we help them to be active and independent learners to find their own success. So we expect students to be able to seek out the resources, ask for help when they need to. Whether you're struggling or you're a straight A student, you can always ask for more help. And then we can help you find the success that you want. So next slide, please. I think academic advising is up first. It just goes over the three offices. So again, three offices under our director, Deb Stevenson. There's three areas, each with an associate director. So academic advising and assistance, Jill Cully is the associate director, disability access, myself, Jason Martin is the director, and then learning strategies management, Bryce Thomas is the director, associate director. And next slide, please.
All right, so again, my name is Danielle. I'm one of the 3 academic advisors in the Office of Academic Advising and Assistance, or AAA as we're known on campus, and we support all undergraduate students. So we have a variety of roles. One that you will see your students going through right now is new student registration. So we build all incoming schedules for incoming first year and transfer students. Those haven't been released yet, but many of the students have found them online, which is great. They're very intelligent students. We are not releasing them until early August because we are just now getting in AP scores from the College Board, Students Community College Credit, International Baccalaureate Credit. All sorts of college credit is coming in. We're reviewing schedules individually to ensure students are in classes they need and do not have credit for. And the reason we build their first semester schedules is to ensure that every student is in a class that will give them credit for a specific requirement. Starting spring semester until a student's graduation, then they will be able to self-register and they'll get guidance from their academic advisor. Apart from new student registration, which takes place primarily over the summer, and then again in the spring, we do the Refer program in partnership with the Center for Cura Personalis. So if our students are experiencing a difficult time, if a co-student or a faculty member or a staff member or parent or families notice this, they can submit a refer form, and that is sent to Center for Cura Personalis or our office if it's an academic related concern, and that activates our process to reach out to the student and check in and see if everything is okay. Additionally, as our name says, we do advising appointments. So we work with all students. We're general advisors for every major on campus. So we have our own set of advisees, those who are undecided or who are transitioning to a new major. But we can do advising sessions for any student in any major if they want to make an academic plan to graduation, if they have questions about if they're in the right classes for the upcoming terms, anything like that. We also do what's called academic recovery. So sometimes students will find themselves on academic probation when they have a GPA that is below a 2.0, and they work with our office in a variety of different formats to help them get back on track academically. We work in partnership quite a bit with disability access and learning strategies to support our students and get them back in good academic standing. And then, as I mentioned, other offices, we do resource referrals to other partners on campus that can help support our students.
All right, so disability access. So our role is pretty specific. We work with students with disabilities, temporary or permanent. So we arrange accommodations and provide resources that allow students with disabilities to access all the university's curriculum, program services, and other activities and facilities. So as I said, disabilities can be temporary or permanent. So a student that has ADHD, maybe they have a 504 plan or an IEP in their K through 12 education. They would talk to us about seeing what accommodations would be appropriate from those plans in the university setting. Perhaps they're never diagnosed and they're newly diagnosed, and they need to find out what accommodations are like in college. We would talk to those students. If a student injures themselves, so they're get a concussion playing intramurals. That's very popular, happens a lot, unfortunately. And they need some temporary accommodations for their finals. That seems to be when intramurals are the most accident-prone activities during finals week. Those students can talk to us, and we can help facilitate temporary accommodations for those types of injuries. A disability is a medical condition that impacts a major life function. So if a student has been diagnosed previously, or if they suspect something's going on, they can talk to us when they get here, or send their request in advance of starting school. There's no deadline to consider anything at any time, as we are bound by the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Next slide for LSM, please.
All right, I'm Bryce Thomas from the Learning Strategies area. And what Learning Strategies does is we help students learn basically how they learn best and really how to be successful in the college environment. We do that through various ways, both supporting students and then offering them leadership opportunities, because a lot of our programs are peer programs, so students have ways to get involved on both ends of what we do, both helping other students and then receiving some extra support. Our Learning Studio is our peer tutoring service that we offer for Gonzaga students. All of the services through the Learning Studio are free, so all students do have access to that, and it's an opportunity to come get extra help in any course that students might need further clarification, or just maybe talking through how to approach a class. So one-on-one tutoring with a peer is offered there. We also offer a variety of digital learning tools and resources on our website, which is a constantly evolving medium that we use, just ways to better approach college. What are the challenges that students are facing now? What are some tools that they can use to help plan their time or access those classes, or really be a healthy, balanced student when they do that? We also have professionals in the office called learning specialists who offer workshops to students on a variety of topics, just depending on what we're seeing from our student population, and also what students are telling us they need. So if it's finals time, we might talk about how do you prepare well for finals? How do you take a good test? How do you prepare for the semester if you're an incoming freshman? Big topics like that we can work with larger groups with. We also offer one-on-one learning sessions with students, where students can come in with their own individual concerns and really drill down into what their challenges are, what their successes are, and set up a plan for how they can approach a semester or a year, and have that sort of feedback from a professional staff to say how they're doing, keeping them on track and making sure that they're growing and having that opportunity to really be successful in their courses. The final area that we offer is the Academic Testing Center. We work in conjunction with the Disability Access Office to offer a space for all students who do have academic accommodation, so that there's a facility that can provide any accommodation that perhaps a faculty member cannot provide in the classroom. So things like additional time, reduced distraction, technology needs that the student might need to use those accommodations on their tests.
So one thing we strive for is that students, that we normalize help-seeking behavior. Students, especially Gonzaga students, they come in so well qualified, so bright, so intelligent, ready to go. And we want all students to realize everybody struggles sometimes, but even if you're not, you can always make things better. So we're located in Foley Library. It's a great building. ITS is, of course, in there. Information technology services in there. And then, of course, as Anthony mentioned, all of the library options. That's a horrible word, I'm sorry.
All the library
services.
Folks are in the library.
All the library folks are in the library. It's really weird, I know. But we are very lucky to be in Foley Library with librarians. It's great to be in a hub of learning. So the Center for Student Academic Success is spread out between the first and second floors of the library. Academic advising is on the first floor. Disability access and learning strategies management on the second floor, in amongst the stacks, in a sense. Nice and quiet around our offices. So we look forward to your questions.
All right. Thank you for that lovely presentation. Let me stop the screen share right here. So we're going into the Q&A portion of the webinar. So if you have any questions for our lovely participants, enter them into the chat now. Sarah also has some questions.
Yes, we have a few pre-scripted questions just for you all and listening to this webinar. I'm sure that our viewers have some. Again, just drop them into the chat anytime. We'll make sure to cut our questions short if you do have one. And this one goes out to Anthony from our Foley Library. Does Foley Library have longer hours during midterms or finals week? And if so, do you know what those are?
Yes, we do. We open earlier typically, and we can extend the hours on the, like I said, we're always going to be open until 2 a.m. the day before class. We'll extend those on the weekends as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are off the top of my head, but if you go to our website, which is foley.gonzaga.edu, then you will be able to see an hours widget that will give you the hours for today. And if you click on there's something like see more or something like that, then you'll get all the hours kind of out 2 or 3 months.
Great, thank you. And then what kinds of events do you all have at Foley just to break up the monotony of studying, which maybe that's the purpose of being there, but also if there's anything extra fun.
Well, in exams weeks, like finals and midterm, probably our most popular is the green therapy dogs.
Yeah.
Which are a huge, huge hit. Always very, very fun. And I think they do lower the blood pressure quite a bit.
Yes.
And then we always try to come up with some fun stuff to do around the same time. We've done Legos and artwork and things like that. And then, of course, there's the famous December cookie night, which one of our librarians, Molly, bakes, hundreds and hundreds, like 60 different types of cookies. And they're available free for students in the evening. That's always very popular.
There are awesome staff come and steal them too.
Yeah, families, mark your calendar. The next question goes out to Danielle. During orientation weekend or that first weekend of school where students are starting to navigate their scheduling and they may run into conflicts of some sort, who are they supposed to turn to? Do they turn towards you all in the library, or should they be turning towards who they've been assigned as within their school of business or whatever?
Yeah, great question. So if a student has a problem or a concern with their schedule, they will want to contact our office because we're the ones that build the schedule. Their advisor, unless it is myself, Kevin, or Jill, won't have the ability to change their schedule.
Okay.
So if they have a concern, if, for example, they change their major, they change their mind, they want something, a whole different series of classes, they could come and see us. We have an FAQ page on our website that says exactly when students can call in to request a schedule change or email us, and then we'll have hours that Friday of orientation, weekend leading in, and then Monday as well, they're welcome. And during the add drop period, I should say too, that runs through the first week of classes, students have the ability to add or drop a class if they encounter something that they found they love and they want to change their major, or if they've gotten a job and they need to pick a different class for different hours, something like that.
Yeah, and families, what she's referring to is that September 4th, which is a Wednesday, is the last day to add a class, and then September 6th, which is a Friday, is the last day to drop a class before you go into the school year. So thank you for touching on that. Yeah, that's a great point. And then the next one is for Jason. What's the average turnaround time for getting disability access? Of course, sometimes it happens kind of last minute. How are you as an office able to support a student so quickly?
So it depends on the complexity of the student's request, accommodation request, and the quality of the documentation we get. So if so we do require medical documentation of some sort, and those can be the parameters for that documentation we found on our website. If a student's injured and it's finals week, we're going to do everything we can to expedite that. Though often we have to ask the faculty to wait a whole lot for the students they can't take a test right now, they just got a head injury. So we need to wait. And so the accommodation in that case would just be us asking faculty to wait for the student. Generally, it can take up to, a general statement, it can take up to 15 business days to get through documentation review. So our process, student requests an accommodation or a series of accommodations. They provide medical documentation that links their request up to how they're being impacted by their condition. And then we review the narrative, and we review the documentation. We meet with the student, collect their narrative on that, because sometimes doctors don't know better than what the student has to say. And so, and actually that's often the case. The student knows their condition best. And then once we meet with them, generally after that, the accommodation plan will be in place. Except for injuries, and it's finals week, we get that expedited. Or if they have, paper the next day or something like that. Fortunately, that doesn't come up too often. But,
yeah.
But we do what we need to do to ensure that the student gets what they need. There are no academic emergencies. Faculty can wait to give them a test later.
Yeah, certainly. That's a great response. Thank you so much, Jason. And then with that, of course, we talked about what we do in a short term. What about the long term? What about a family that's coming in, and specifically, it's the student's responsibility to make sure that occurs, that paperwork is filed, that they have the disability access that they need. Is that something that the student should do prior to arriving on campus, or is that within the first week get that done? What is your timeline on that?
So the sooner the better. Students transitioning from the K-12 system to university often feel like, oh, it's a new environment, my disability's going to go away or it's going to be less. Students often will stop taking their medication when they get to college. Talking to them about that, they should not do that. But to answer the question, generally we ask that they get it in as soon as they think that, as soon as they realize, oh, I'm probably going to need this. It's a voluntary process, and using the accommodations is voluntary. Unlike K through 12, like you weren't sent off to a resource room or something like that. If you want to take tests with your accommodation, you sign up for the tests. If you don't, you don't. So, but get your letter, we call it the letter, the faculty notification letter in place that lets them know about the accommodation, so that you don't have to worry about whether or not that's in place. You just get it in the semester. That would be my recommendation. That said, some students want to try it out, figure out what they need, and want to contact us in October or December, their sophomore year or whatever. That's fine. We'll consider anything at any time. But like I always say, better to have it on the books and not need it than need it and not have it set up. Because some things can take time, and implementing some accommodations can take time. You can't sign up. You can't drop your documentation off for your test tomorrow and expect to have accommodations on it. It's not going to work. So as soon as possible. Short answer.
Perfect.
Thank you. That was a great answer. I see a few people just came in just now. For those of you that just entered, welcome. Our guests this week are from Foley Library and the Center for Student Academic Success. We're in the Q&A portion of the webinar, so if you have any questions for them, you can type them into the chat.
And then the next question, as we continue in the series of questions, Bryce, this one's for you. You said that the Learning Studio was a peer-to-peer program or of some sort. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And is there a job position available, or is this a volunteer position for students?
Right, so the Learning Studio is a fantastic opportunity for all students. The Learning Assistant is a job that a student can have at Gonzaga. These are upperclassmen who meet certain GPA requirements and are referred by their faculty for their excellence in their coursework. So we acquire those students, we train them in how to be a successful peer mentor and tutor, not only knowing the information of the courses that they're proficient in, but then knowing how to relay that information to others and work with other students is an important skill they learn when they work for us. So that's the position of our Learning Assistant. And then they work with their peers, the students who are looking for help in specific courses to offer them that kind of support. Many courses are difficult. There's accounting, there's math, biology courses, and all of the sciences. So many of our students are of those academic tracks of very challenging courses. So they have the knowledge of not only the specific course, but how that plays into other courses, and they can help students approach the difficult problems in the course and also just navigate the major as well.
Perfect, thank you so much. And then let me ask you one more while we're here. So what might be a way that learning strategies management is different than visiting just a teacher's office hours? Or can you elaborate on that?
Certainly. Doing college is a lot of work, and there's a lot of different ways to approach things. And both of those things, either using learning strategies or talking to your faculty, are important. I wouldn't say one's more important than the other. We always encourage students to engage with their faculty and engage with all of the resources they have at Gonzaga. And it's all about just finding what works best for you and seeing what is the most effective approach. So we just really advise students to look at all those different avenues and make sure that they're approaching situations from all angles.
Great, thank you so much. And
all right, if we don't have any questions in the chat, I will go ahead and close this webinar out. For those of you that missed it, please remember that we're recording these and we're going to post them on our YouTube channel and on the Parent and Family Relations Facebook page for later viewing. Please tune in next week for our guests from the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, Community, and Equity. What a mouthful. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.